Admiral Zexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. 200 Caltharian warships surrounded 3 tiny human vessels that had dared to enter Imperial space. Each of his ships could destroy planets, and together they formed the most feared fleet in the galaxy. The humans had no idea what they were facing. The 3 human ships looked pathetic compared to his massive fleet. They were small cargo vessels, barely worth his attention under normal circumstances. But these humans had been detected crossing into Caltharian territory without permission, and that meant they needed to learn their place in the galactic order. Zexstar activated his communication array and prepared to deliver the standard surrender demand. His voice boomed across all frequencies, translated into the primitive human language by his ship's computers. Attention, human vessels. You have entered territory belonging to the mighty Caltharian Empire. You are completely surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately or face complete destruction. You have 30 seconds to comply. The bridge fell silent as Zexstar and his officers waited for the expected response. Usually, primitive species would beg for mercy or try to flee in terror. Some would attempt to bargain. None had ever responded the way the humans did. Laughter filled the communication. Channel dot, it was not nervous laughter or hysterical fear. It was genuine, warm laughter, as if someone had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. The sound echoed through the Caltharian flagship's bridge, leaving the alien crew staring at each other in confusion. "Sorry about that," came a relaxed human voice. "I'm Captain Jake Murphy of the cargo ship Pioneer's Dream. Did you just threaten to destroy us with 200 ships? That's honestly pretty funny." Zexstar's jaw dropped. In his 300 years of military service, no one had ever laughed. At a Caltharian fleet deployment, he struggled to find words. "You dare mock the Imperial fleet?" he finally managed. "Oh, I'm not mocking anything," Murphy replied cheerfully. "It's just overkill, you know. Like using a planet cracker to open a can of beans. We're just 3 cargo ships carrying coffee and chocolate. You could have sent one guy in a shuttle, and we would have been happy to chat." The Admiral's tactical officer, Commander Vorth, leaned over to whisper urgently. "Sir, our scans confirm. They have no weapons, no shields, no armor. They are completely defenseless." This information only made the situation more confusing. If the humans knew they were helpless, why were they not afraid? "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," suggested Navigation Officer Kelks. "Their primitive minds may not comprehend the power we represent." Zexstar decided to clarify. "Human vessel, you are facing the 47th Imperial Battle Fleet. We have conquered entire star systems. We have turned rebellious planets into glass. Your 3 ships could not even scratch the paint on our smallest escort vessel." "That's really impressive," Murphy said, and he sounded genuinely interested. 47 star systems? Wow, we've only got the 1 so far, but we're working on it. Hey, would you like some coffee? We've got some amazing Jamaican Blue Mountain. That just came in. The bridge crew exchanged glances. The human was offering them beverages while surrounded by enough firepower to sterilize a continent. "I do not want your coffee," Zexstar said slowly. "I want your immediate surrender." "Well, that's disappointing about the coffee," Murphy replied. "It's really good stuff. As for surrendering, I'm afraid we can't do that. We've got delivery schedules to keep. People are waiting for their coffee and chocolate back home, and we promised we'd be there by Thursday." Engineer Lisa Brown's voice joined the conversation from the background. "Tell them about the music collection, Jake. They might like that." "Oh, right," Murphy said with enthusiasm. "We're also carrying a complete collection of Earth music. Everything from classical to rock to something called death metal, which sounds scarier than it actually is. Would you like us to play something? We've got speakers that can broadcast on any frequency. Communications Officer Amy Taylor chimed in. I vote for some jazz. These guys sound tense. Navigator Pete Collins laughed. Come on, Amy. Look at those ships. They're clearly metal fans. The casual conversation between the human crew members was being broadcast across the entire Caltharian fleet. Zexstar could hear his own officers muttering in confusion and concern. Silence, the Admiral roared. This is not a social gathering. This is a military operation. You will surrender or be destroyed. I get that you're trying to do your job, Murphy said sympathetically. But destroying us seems like a waste of good coffee. Plus, think about the paperwork. Do you really want to file reports explaining why you needed 200 warships to deal with 3 cargo ships? Your superiors might ask awkward questions. The comment hit closer to home than Murphy could have known. The Caltharian military bureaucracy was legendary for its complexity, and explaining why an entire battle fleet was deployed against unarmed merchants would indeed raise questions. Besides, Murphy continued, we're not actually doing anything wrong. We're just passing through. We'll be out of your space in a few hours. No harm, no foul, right? You entered Imperial territory without permission, Zexstar insisted. Did we? Sorry about that. We're still figuring out who owns what out here. The galaxy's a big place, and the territorial maps we bought from the Centauri trading post might be a bit out of date. We'll make sure to update our navigation charts. The casual way Murphy discussed galactic politics suggested the humans knew more about the local situation than they were letting on. This was another troubling development. Sir, Commander Vorth reported quietly, long-range sensors are detecting additional human ships in nearby systems. At least a dozen merchant vessels following similar routes. This meant the 3 ships were not isolated explorers, but part of a larger human expansion into the galaxy. The implications were significant. Are there more human ships in the area? Zexstar asked directly. Oh, sure, Murphy replied without hesitation. Probably 20 or 30 in this sector alone. Earth's been sending out traders for the last few years. We're hoping to set up some regular trade routes. You know, bring some good coffee and music to the galaxy. Maybe pick up some interesting alien technology in return. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. If humanity was actively expanding into space with dozens of ships, they represented a potential threat that the Empire had completely failed to detect. How many ships does your species possess? He demanded. Honestly, I lost count, Murphy said. Cheerfully, Earth's been pretty busy building them. Every week there's another launch. We're not military types, you understand. Just merchants and explorers. But there are a lot of us, and we're curious about what's out here. The conversation was interrupted by a new voice from one of the other human ships. Hey Jake, this is Susan. Right on the Wanderer's Hope. Are we going to sit here talking all day? Or should we start the music broadcast? I've got some great blues that might help these folks relax. Good idea, Susan, Murphy replied. What do you think, Admiral? Want to hear some human music while we sort this out? I promise it's better than our cooking. Admiral Zexstar stared at his tactical display in growing frustration. The 3 human ships continued to drift casually through space, completely ignoring the fact that 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had their weapons trained on them. Even worse, the humans seemed to be treating the entire situation like a social gathering. Captain Susan Wright of the Wanderers Hope had begun broadcasting what she called Earth Blues across all frequencies. The strange human music filled the communication channels with sounds unlike anything in the Caltharian cultural database. It was somehow both melancholy and uplifting, with instruments that seemed to cry and laugh at the same time. This is B.B. King, Wright announced cheerfully to the entire fleet, one of Earth's greatest musicians. He could make a guitar weep tears of joy Jake, what do you think? Should we follow up with some muddy waters, or go straight to the rolling? Stones? Let's ease them into it, Captain Murphy replied from the pioneer's dream. Maybe some Johnny Cash first. These folks seem a little tense. The casual conversation between the human captains was being monitored by every ship in the Caltharian fleet. Zextar's communications officer reported that several escort ships were actually requesting copies of the music for their cultural archives. Turn off that noise, Zextar commanded, but his order seemed half-hearted. Even he found the human music oddly compelling. Oh, you don't like blues? Wright asked with genuine concern. That's okay. We've got lots of other options. Carl, what's in the jazz collection? Pilot Carl Johnson's voice joined the conversation. We've got Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Ella Fitzgerald. Or if they want something more upbeat, there's some great swing music from the 1940s. The 1940s? Navigation Officer Kelks whispered to his commander. How old is their civilization? The question had occurred to Zextar as well. Most species that achieved space travel had only a few centuries of recorded culture. The humans were casually referencing musicians from hundreds of years ago as if they had a vast cultural history. Danny's got a point, though, Johnson continued. These folks might prefer something with more energy. What about some rock and roll? Medic Danny Rodriguez laughed from somewhere in the background. Carl, you can't just throw L.E. Zeppelin at people without warning them first. That's how you cause diplomatic incidents. The human crew members were placing actual bets on which type of music would appeal to the alien fleet. Zextar listened in amazement as they discussed odds and wagered their coffee rations on various outcomes. I've got 5 credits that says they're metal fans, announced someone from the third ship. Look at those ships. All sharp edges and weapon arrays. Classic metal aesthetic. Captain Tony Miller of the New Horizon joined the conversation. I don't know, Pete. They might surprise us. Dr. Green thinks they could be closet classical music. Lovers. Dr. Rachel Green here, came a new voice, calm and scientific. Based on their ship designs and formation patterns, I'm detecting a highly organized, disciplined culture. They might appreciate Bach or Mozart, structured mathematical music. The fact that the humans were analyzing Caltharian culture through their military formations was both impressive and disturbing. These were not primitive beings stumbling blindly through space. You are scientists, Zextar said, interrupting the musical discussion. Some of us, Dr. Green replied pleasantly. I'm a xenobiologist. Tony's got a doctorate in stellar cartography. We're always excited to meet new species. Would you be interested in a cultural exchange? We could share some information about human society in return for learning about yours. The offer was so unexpected that Zextar found himself actually considering it. First contact protocols called for the complete subjugation or elimination of new species, not cultural exchanges. We are not here for cultural exchange, he said firmly. We are here to enforce imperial law. That's a shame, Dr. Green said. We've learned so much from the other species we've met. The Centauri taught us some fascinating things about star navigation, and the vegan traders had excellent recipes for synthetic proteins. Commander Vorth leaned over to whisper urgently. Sir, they have already made contact with the Centauri Alliance and the Vegan Trade Federation. This suggests they have been operating in space for some time. This was increasingly troubling intelligence. The humans were not naive newcomers to galactic civilization. They had already established relationships with other species and were familiar with interstellar politics. How long have humans been traveling between stars? Zextar asked. Oh, about 10 years now, Miller replied casually. We started small, just a few experimental ships. But once we figured out faster-than-light travel, everyone wanted to see what was out there. Earth's got about 8 billion people, and most of them are pretty curious. 8 billion. The number hit the Caltharian bridge crew like a physical blow. Most species numbered in the millions when they achieved space travel. A population of 8 billion suggested a civilization of enormous scope and resources. Your planet has 8 billion inhabitants? Zexstar asked, hoping he had misunderstood. Give or take, Murphy said cheerfully. We're pretty crowded down there. That's one reason we're branching out. Earth's a nice place, but there's a whole galaxy to explore. Sam Harris, a xenobiologist from the New Horizon, added his thoughts. From what we've seen, most alien species seem to have much smaller populations. Is that normal? Do you folks practice population control? Or are we just the odd ones out? The question revealed another disturbing aspect of human culture. They were numerous enough to treat space exploration as a casual expansion rather than a desperate necessity. Most civilized species maintain sustainable population levels. Zexstar replied stiffly. Makes sense, Harris agreed. We tried that for a while, but humans are pretty stubborn about reproducing. We had some wars about it, actually. Eventually, we just decided to spread out instead. Easier than trying to convince 8 billion people to stop having kids. The casual reference to wars over population control suggested a species comfortable with large-scale conflict. Combined with their massive population, this painted a picture of a potentially dangerous civilization. You fight wars among yourselves? Commander Vorth asked before Zexstar could stop him. Oh, sure, Wright replied from the Wanderer's Hope. We've had thousands of them. Big ones, small ones, everything in between. We even had a global war, just to settle an argument about which country makes the best pizza. The bridge fell silent. A species that would fight planetary wars over food preferences was either completely insane or so resource-rich that they could afford to treat massive conflicts as minor disagreements. The pizza war wasn't really about pizza, Dr. Green clarified. Helpfully, it was more about economic systems and territorial disputes. But the pizza thing made for better headlines. Headlines? Kelks asked weakly. News media, Miller explained. We've got thousands of organizations that report on current events. They love dramatic stories. World War III, the pizza wars sold a lot more papers than complex geopolitical. Realignment in the early 21st century. The idea of a civilization with thousands of independent news organizations suggested a level of information freedom that most galactic species found incomprehensible. It also implied a society complex enough to support massive media infrastructure. Your species has free information exchange? Zexstar asked. Mostly, Murphy said. We argue about it a lot, but yeah, people can pretty much say whatever they want. It gets messy sometimes, but we found it works better than the alternatives we tried. The implications were staggering. A species with billions of individuals, free information exchange, a history of casual warfare, and the technological capability for interstellar travel represented a potential threat, unlike anything the Caltharian Empire had ever encountered. Admiral Zexstar had reached the end of his patience. The human ships continued to drift through space as if they were on a casual sightseeing tour, completely ignoring the massive fleet surrounding them. Their cheerful conversation about music and pizza wars had been going on for over an hour, and his officers were starting to look at him with questioning expressions. Enough, he declared, cutting off a discussion about something called country music. Human vessels, you have exactly 60 seconds to begin surrender procedures, or we will open fire. Fire? Captain Murphy sounded genuinely surprised. That seems like an overreaction. We haven't done anything hostile. You entered Imperial space without authorization, Zexstar reminded him. Right, and we apologized for the navigation error. Murphy replied reasonably. We even offered to share our coffee and music as a goodwill gesture. What more do you want? The Admiral activated his weapon systems, sending targeting data to every ship in the fleet. Warning lights flashed red across 200 bridges as the most powerful military force in the galaxy prepared to eliminate 3 unarmed cargo ships. "Final warning," Zextar announced. "Surrender or be destroyed." "Okay, I can see you're really serious about this," Murphy said with a sigh. "But before you start shooting, could you do us a favor and send us the coordinates for the nearest Caltharian colony? We've got some excellent coffee beans that your people might really enjoy, and it would be a shame to let them go to waste." The request was so unexpected that Zextar actually forgot to give the firing order. "You want to trade with us?" "Sure, why not?" Murphy replied cheerfully. "That's what we do. We're merchants. Earth's got lots of great stuff to trade, and I'm sure you folks have interesting things we'd like to see. Coffee, chocolate, music, books, movies, whiskey. We've got variety." Captain Wright's voice joined in from the Wanderer's hope. "Don't forget the hot sauce, Jake. Humans love their hot sauce. We've got varieties that could probably strip paint off a starship hull." "True," Murphy agreed. "Though we should probably start them with the mild stuff first. Some of our peppers are considered weapons of mass destruction on peaceful planets." Dr. Green's scientific voice added, "Speaking of which, we've been monitoring galactic communications for about 50 years now. We know all about the various empires and federations out here. The Caltharian Empire has a reputation for military efficiency, which we respect. We're not looking for trouble." The casual admission that humanity had been watching galactic civilization for half a century sent another chill through the Caltharian bridge crew. These were not primitive newcomers stumbling into space. They were a species that had been observing and planning their entry into galactic society for decades. "You have been spying on us," Zextar accused. "Spying is such an ugly word," Dr. Green replied diplomatically. "We prefer conducting long-term sociological observations. It's basic, scientific method. You study a new environment before you enter it. Besides," Captain Miller added from the New Horizon, "your communications aren't encrypted. Anyone with a decent radio telescope can pick up your broadcasts. We learned your languages the same way we learned about Centauri, trade routes, and vegan agricultural techniques." Sam Harris chimed in with enthusiasm. "The cultural analysis has been fascinating. Did you know that 17 different species use almost identical mathematical principles for faster-than-light navigation? It suggests either common origin or convergent evolution of spatial reasoning." The xenobiologist's excitement about comparative mathematics was somehow more unnerving than direct threats would have been. It suggested a species that approached even military confrontations as learning opportunities. "Anyway," Murphy continued conversationally, "we know you've conquered 47 star systems, which is really impressive. Earth's had some conquerors too, though usually on a smaller scale. Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, that sort of thing. How long did it take you to build your empire?" The question was delivered with such genuine curiosity that Zextar found himself answering automatically. "The Caltharian Empire has been expanding for over 1,000 years. 1,000 years for 47 systems," Dr. Green mused. "That's actually quite methodical. Sustainable expansion with proper consolidation periods. Very sensible." "We tried the rapid expansion approach a few times," Wright added helpfully. "Never worked out well. The Mongols managed to conquer most of Asia in about 50 years, but it fell apart pretty quickly after that. Your approach is much more stable." The casual way the humans discussed galactic conquest as if it were an academic subject was deeply disturbing. They were analyzing Caltharian military strategy with the same tone they had used to discuss music preferences. "You compare us to your historical conquerors?" Zextar asked. "Well, the scale is different," Murphy admitted. "Alexander conquered maybe a few million square kilometers. You folks are working with entire star systems. But the basic principles are similar. Military strength, administrative organization, cultural integration. Though to be fair, most of our conquerors didn't last as long as your empire has. Our conquerors were mostly human, though, Miller pointed out. Conquering other humans is probably easier than conquering alien species. Humans understand human psychology. Cross-species empire building must be much more challenging. The observation showed an understanding of imperial logistics that impressed even Zextar's strategic planning officers. These humans were thinking about conquest and administration on galactic scales. Are you planning to build your own empire? Commander Vorth asked suspiciously. Empire? Murphy sounded genuinely puzzled. No, that seems like a lot of work. We're more interested in trade. Mech works. Buy low, sell high, make everyone happy. Empires require armies and bureaucrats and tax collectors. Trading just requires good products and reliable shipping. Plus, Wright added, humans tried the empire thing a bunch of times. The Romans, the British, the Spanish, lots of others. They all fell apart eventually. Too much overhead, not enough profit. We figured trade was more sustainable. The casual dismissal of empire building as economically inefficient was perhaps the most unsettling thing the humans had said yet. It suggested a species that had moved beyond conquest as a primary expansion strategy. However, Dr. Green added thoughtfully, we should mention that Earth does have some defensive capabilities. Not military conquests, just basic protection for our trade routes and colonies. How basic? Zextar asked, dreading the answer. Oh, you know, Murphy said casually. Standard stuff. Patrol ships, orbital platforms, that sort of thing. Earth. Command keeps about 10,000 ships on active duty, but most of them are just doing routine patrols and escort missions. 10,000 ships. The number hit the Caltharian fleet like a physical blow. The entire Imperial Navy consisted of fewer than 3,000 vessels, and that represented the accumulated military power of 47 conquered worlds. Did he say 10,000? Calx whispered. That's just the active duty fleet. Harris clarified helpfully. Earth's got shipyards on 12 different worlds now, and they're turning out maybe 50 new ships a month. Mostly cargo haulers and research vessels, but some military craft too. The implications were staggering. Humanity was producing more. Military vessels in a single month than most galactic civilizations possessed in their entire fleets. Of course, Wright added cheerfully, most of those ships are probably wondering where we got to by now. We were supposed to check in with Earth Command 6 hours ago. They might start looking for us if we don't report in soon. What happens when Earth Command looks for missing ships? Zextar asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Usually nothing traumatic, Murphy replied reassuringly. They send out a search and rescue team, maybe a dozen ships to check the last known route. Earth takes a pretty dim view of merchants going missing, so they tend to investigate thoroughly. Admiral Zextar decided that words were no longer sufficient. The humans clearly did not understand the gravity of their situation, and perhaps a demonstration of Caltharian firepower would clarify matters. He identified a large asteroid, approximately 50 kilometers from the human ships, and targeted it with his flagship's main weapons array. Human vessels, observe, he announced coldly. This is the fate that awaits those who defy the Caltharian Empire. The flagship's primary plasma cannon charged with a deep harmonic hum that resonated through the ship's hull. Brilliant blue energy lanced out across space, striking the asteroid with devastating force. The ancient rock, probably millions of years old, vaporized in a spectacular explosion of light and debris. Zextar waited for the humans to react with appropriate terror. Instead, he heard enthusiastic applause coming from all three ships. Wow, that was beautiful, Captain Murphy said with genuine appreciation. Great light show. What kind of energy output was that? Engineer Lisa Brown's voice joined the conversation, sounding professionally interested. I'm reading plasma temperatures around 40,000 degrees and a sustained energy release of about 6 terawatts. That's some serious firepower. The targeting system looked pretty accurate too, added Navigator Pete Collins. Nice clean hit on a moving target. What's your effective range? The humans were analyzing his weapons demonstration, like engineering students reviewing a technical presentation. They showed no fear, only curiosity about the technology involved. You just witnessed the destruction of a 50-kilometer asteroid, Zextar said slowly. Your ships would be vaporized even more quickly. Oh, absolutely, Murphy agreed cheerfully. No question about it. Our ships are basically tin cans compared to your firepower. Pretty impressive stuff. Though I have to ask, isn't that kind of overkill for asteroid removal? Asteroid removal? Commander Vorth repeated in confusion. Sure, said Captain Miller from the New Horizon. We do a lot of asteroid mining back home, and that looked like a pretty standard demolition job, though we usually use shaped charges to break them into manageable pieces rather than vaporizing them completely. Better material recovery that way. Dr. Green's voice added scientific commentary. The energy dispersal pattern suggests your weapon systems prioritize complete target destruction over material preservation. That's consistent with a military rather than industrial application. We've got some great videos of human asteroid mining operations, offered Sam Harris enthusiastically. Much more efficient than the brute force approach. We could show you some techniques that might save energy costs. The casual suggestion that humanity could improve upon Caltharian military technology was deeply insulting. Zextar had just demonstrated the power to destroy worlds, and the humans were critiquing his efficiency ratings. We are not miners, he said through gritted teeth. We are warriors. Right, of course, Murphy said apologetically. Different applications require different approaches. Though if you ever want to get into the asteroid mining business, Earth's got some excellent training programs. Captain Wright's voice joined in from the Wanderer's Hope. Actually, that brings up an interesting point. If you folks are warriors, what do you do between conquests? I mean, you can't be fighting wars all the time. The question revealed another gap in human understanding of galactic civilization. Most species spent centuries between military campaigns, focusing on administration and cultural development. The Empire requires constant vigilance, Zextar replied. We patrol our territory, maintain order, and prepare for future expansion. That sounds exhausting, Wright said sympathetically. Humans tried the constant warfare approach for a while, but we found it was terrible for the economy. Hard to build anything when you're always blowing stuff up. We learned that lesson the hard way, Miller added. 2 world wars in 30 years nearly destroyed our entire civilization. After that, we decided there had to be better ways to settle disagreements. The casual reference to world wars as learning experiences was becoming a disturbing pattern. In human conversation, they discussed planetary-scale conflicts as if they were minor historical footnotes. Your species fought 2 global wars? Navigation Officer Kelks asked in horror. Oh, those were just the big ones, Dr. Green replied helpfully. We had hundreds of smaller wars running simultaneously. The 20th century was particularly violent. We estimate about 100 million casualties from various conflicts. 100 million casualties. The number was beyond anything in Caltharian military history. Even their most brutal conquest had resulted in fewer than 10 million deaths. We got better at it, though, Harris added optimistically. The casualty rates from our recent conflicts have been much lower. Better medical technology, more precise weapons, improved logistics. We've really streamlined the whole process. The idea that humanity had optimized warfare for efficiency was terrifying. It suggested a species that approached military conflict with the same systematic analysis they applied to asteroid mining. "Why do you fight so many wars?" Zexstar asked, morbidly curious. "Lots of reasons," Murphy replied thoughtfully. "Resources, territory, ideology, religion, economics, sometimes just because we didn't like each other very much. Humans are pretty competitive. We fought a civil war because half the country wanted to keep slaves, and the other half thought that was morally wrong," Wright added. 600,000 casualties over a philosophical disagreement. There was also the war that started because someone shot an archduke, Miller contributed. That one killed about 20 million people. Amazing how small events can spiral out of control. The casual way humans discussed massive casualties was more unnerving than any direct threat. These were not bloodthirsty monsters, but a species that had simply normalized large-scale violence as part of their cultural development. "But we learned from our mistakes," Dr. Green said reassuringly. "Earth's been relatively peaceful for the last century. We channeled all that competitive energy into space exploration and technological development instead of killing each other. Mostly," Murphy added with a chuckle. "We still have the occasional disagreement, but nothing like the old days." The Mars Rebellion only lasted 6 months, and the lunar colonies settled their independence dispute through negotiation. The offhand reference to colonial rebellions suggested that humanity was already dealing with the challenges of interplanetary governance. They had progressed beyond single-world civilization and were managing multiple colonies. "You have colonies on other worlds?" Zexstar asked. "Sure, dozens of them," Harris replied. "Mars, Luna, the outer planet moons, couple of asteroid habitats. About 50 million people living off Earth now. We're planning colonies in other star systems too." 50 million off-world colonists represented a space-based population larger than most entire alien civilizations. It also meant humanity had the logistical capability to support complex operations across multiple worlds simultaneously. "The terraforming projects are particularly exciting," Dr. Green added. "We're converting 3 dead worlds into garden planets. It takes about a century per world, but the results are spectacular." Terraforming. The humans were casually discussing planetary engineering projects that most galactic civilizations considered theoretical impossibilities. "You can create habitable worlds?" Commander Vorth asked in amazement. "Oh, sure," Miller replied. "It's mostly just atmospheric engineering and ecosystem management. Earth's been doing it for about 200 years now. We've got the process down to a science. Though we should mention," Murphy added helpfully, "we learned terraforming techniques by fixing our own planet first. Earth had some environmental problems a couple centuries ago, and we had to figure out how to repair damaged ecosystems on a global scale. The implication that humanity had nearly destroyed their homeworld and then developed the technology to repair, it suggested capabilities that bordered on the miraculous. "We accidentally changed our planet's climate," Wright explained. "Got a little too enthusiastic with industrial development and almost cooked ourselves. But we figured out how to reverse the process and actually made Earth more habitable than it was originally. Better weather, more stable ecosystems, higher crop yields," Harris added proudly. "Earth's population has doubled since we fixed the climate problems." A species that could accidentally damage their planet's climate and then deliberately repair it possessed environmental control technologies beyond anything in the Caltharian database. Admiral Zexstar stared at his tactical display with growing dread. Every piece of information the humans casually revealed painted a picture of a civilization so advanced and numerous that the Caltharian Empire would be completely outmatched in any serious conflict. Yet these same humans continued to treat his battle fleet as nothing more than an interesting curiosity. "Human vessels," he said finally. "What weapons do your ships carry?" The question had been bothering him for hours. No species traveled through space completely defenseless, yet his sensors detected no energy signatures consistent with weapon systems. Weapons? Captain Murphy sounded genuinely puzzled. "We don't really have any. This is a cargo run, not a military expedition. No weapons at all?" Zexstar pressed. "Well, we've got some emergency flares in case we break down," Engineer Lisa Brown offered helpfully. "And the galley has some pretty sharp kitchen knives. Oh, and Pete brought his grandfather's shotgun as a memento." Navigator Pete Collins laughed. "That old thing hasn't been fired in 50 years. I just keep it because it belonged to my grandfather. He used it for hunting ducks." "Duck hunting?" Commander Vorth whispered in confusion. "Small earth birds," Dr. Green explained. "Humans hunt them for sport and food. It requires considerable skill to hit a fast-moving target with primitive projectile weapons." The idea that humans hunted flying animals with handheld weapons suggested reflexes and marksmanship abilities that could be formidable in combat situations. "Also got a pretty loud speaker system," Captain Wright added from the Wanderer's Hope. "Sometimes cargo ships need to signal for help across long distances. It can broadcast on pretty much any frequency." The admission that the human ships were genuinely unarmed should have been reassuring, but somehow it made the situation even more terrifying. These merchants were so confident in their safety that they traveled through potentially hostile space with nothing but kitchen knives and emergency flares. "You travel between stars without weapons," Zexstar said slowly, trying to understand the implications. "Why would we need weapons?" Captain Miller asked from the New Horizon. "We're just merchants. Most species we've met have been pretty friendly. Once we start trading, and if you encounter hostile species?" Navigation Officer Kelks asked. "Well, that's what Earth Command is for," Murphy replied cheerfully. "They keep track of where all the merchant ships are supposed to be. If we don't check in on schedule, they send people to investigate." The casual confidence in their militaries' response capabilities was more intimidating than any weapon display. These humans traveled unarmed because they knew rescue was always available. How quickly can Earth Command respond to distress calls? Zexstar found himself asking. "Depends on the distance," Wright said thoughtfully. "In this sector, probably 6 to 8 hours for the first response team. Maybe 12 hours for a full battle group if the situation looks serious." "What constitutes a full battle group?" Commander Vorth asked with professional curiosity. "Oh, standard deployment is usually 50 ships," Harris replied casually. "Mix of cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. Sometimes they bring more if the intelligence reports suggest a major threat." 50 ships in 12 hours. The Caltharian Empire's fastest response time for a similar force was 3 days, and that was only if ships were already positioned nearby. Though they might send more if 3 cargo ships went missing simultaneously, Dr. Green added thoughtfully. That would suggest a significant threat to merchant shipping. Earth takes commerce protection very seriously. How many ships might they send? Zexstar asked, dreading the answer. "Hard to say," Murphy replied. "Probably depends on who's in charge of the response. Admiral Johnson tends to be conservative, maybe 100 ships. Admiral Martinez is more aggressive. She might bring 300 or 400 just to be safe. 300 or 400 ships as a routine response to missing merchants." The casual way Murphy discussed numbers that dwarfed entire alien fleets was deeply unsettling. "Of course," Miller added helpfully, "if Earth Command thinks someone is actively attacking human merchants, the response gets much more serious. Last time that happened, they deployed about 2,000 ships and hunted down every pirate base in a 50 light-year radius. 2,000 ships for anti-piracy operations. The number represented more military power than most galactic empires, possessed in their entire armed forces. When was this pirate incident? Zextar asked. About 5 years ago, Wright replied. Some raiders from the Outer Rim thought human cargo ships would be easy targets. Took Earth Command about 6 months to track down every single pirate ship and base in the region. What happened to the pirates? Kelks asked. Most of them surrendered once they realized what they were up against, Harris said. The ones who didn't surrender got turned into debris. Earth doesn't negotiate with people who attack civilian ships. The matter-of-fact way the humans discussed the complete elimination of pirate operations suggested military capabilities that were truly formidable. Earth Command probably knows where we are right now, Dr. Green added conversationally. All merchant ships carry tracking beacons. If we've been sitting in one spot for this long, they've probably noticed. The implication that human military forces were already aware of the situation sent a chill through the Caltharian bridge crew. Your military is monitoring this conversation? Zextar asked. Not actively, Murphy said reassuringly. But if we don't move soon, they'll start wondering why 3 cargo ships stopped in the middle of nowhere. Standard procedure is to investigate any unusual delays. How long before they investigate? Commander Vorth asked. We're about 2 hours overdue now, Wright calculated. They probably won't send anyone for another 4 or 5 hours, unless we miss our next scheduled check-in. 4 hours. Zextar realized that he had perhaps 4 hours before human military forces arrived to investigate why their merchants had been delayed. Given what he had learned about human capabilities, even a small investigation team would likely outgun his entire fleet. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should allow you to continue your journey. That's very kind of you, Murphy replied warmly. We really appreciate your understanding. And the offer for coffee still stands if you'd like to visit a human colony sometime. Or if you want to hear more music, Wright added. We've got thousands of hours of recordings from hundreds of different artists. Earth's cultural output is pretty impressive. We should also mention, Dr. Green said in her helpful scientific tone, that Earth has established formal diplomatic relations with most of the known galactic powers. If the Caltharian Empire is interested in opening trade negotiations, the diplomatic corps would be happy to arrange meetings. The offer of formal diplomatic contact was both tempting and terrifying. Trade with humanity could bring enormous benefits, but it would also mean acknowledging them as equals rather than subjects to be conquered. We will consider your proposal, Zextar said diplomatically. Excellent, Miller replied enthusiastically. Earth's always interested in new trading partners. We've got some amazing products that other species seem to love. Plus, Harris added, human space is growing pretty quickly. We're establishing new colonies every few months. Lots of opportunities for mutually beneficial relationships. The reminder that humanity was rapidly expanding into space served as a final warning. The Caltharian Empire could either establish friendly relations now or potentially face a much larger and more powerful human civilization in the future. Human vessels, Zextar announced formally, you are free to continue your journey. The Caltharian Empire acknowledges your right of passage through this sector. Thank you, Admiral, Murphy replied cheerfully. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Safe travels to you and your fleet. As the 3 human cargo ships resumed their course and began moving away from the Caltharian fleet, Zextar turned to his communications officer. Update the galactic database, he ordered quietly. Classify human space as a restricted zone. All Imperial ships are to avoid contact with human vessels unless specifically authorized by High Command. What classification code should I use? Sir? The officer asked. .ce X single quotes tar thought for a moment about everything he had learned. A species of 8 billion individuals with 10,000 military ships, the ability to terraform planets, a history of casual planetary warfare, and the confidence to send unarmed merchants through potentially hostile space. Use classification Omega-7, he said finally. Extreme caution advised. Residents are clinically insane and possess unknown, but apparently unlimited military capabilities. As the Caltharian battle fleet began its retreat, the 3 human cargo ships continued peacefully toward their destination, their crews already discussing whether they had packed enough hot sauce for the next trading post.